The Florida Gators transfer portal approach was perfect for a new coaching staff in Gainesville.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Wednesday, hump day. I am Brendan Olsen. Find all of my written work with swampsignal.substack.com. We got scouting reports coming out right now of all the transfer portal players. Aaron Philo today, just saying. And I'm the host of Locked On Gators. I'm a lifelong Florida Gators fan. We will probably do a live show today at about noon Eastern time again. We've been having fun with those. I've been having a blast doing them, frankly. I'm just going to be honest with you. And today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is almost over. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. And the Florida Gators transfer portal approach under Jon Sumrall has been obviously very different than we've ever seen in Gainesville, because it's very different from what Billy Napier did, right? And I mentioned that we were going to do this yesterday, talk about the transfer portal approach, and then the Jordan Seaton report hit. And like I said, like I don't think it's going to happen. I think they can try to, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'd say there's like a maybe 1 or 2% chance, because guess what? It ain't happening. But the Florida Gators added talented starter quality players, and that's important right away for a team that lost a lot of players. And I know that we can talk about how, Florida lost a bunch of guys from a 4-8 team, and that doesn't matter. Yes, it does, because guess what? A bunch of those guys that left the 4-8 team, where did they go? Because the place that they went was the SEC, was UCLA for Aiden Mizell. Like a bunch of the players that left the Florida Gators still went Power 4, right? The players that left, Nashawn Montgomery went to Missouri. DJ Lagway likely going to Baylor. He committed, but still took visits, but he's probably going there. Aiden Mizell went to UCLA. Trey Wilson went to LSU. Jameer Grimsley, Jamrock Grimsley went to Mississippi State. Jordan Castell went to Kentucky. Aaron Gates went to Kentucky. Makai Boyroe went to, and Sharif Denson went to Ole Miss. Katie Daniels is at Wake Forest now. Like a bunch of the players that left the Florida Gators stayed playing Power 4. That's usually a pretty good indicator that the talent was there on your roster. It was truly coaching that failed you. So we could say like, oh yeah, you lost a bunch of players from a 4-8 team, but like you lost talented football players. And what did this coaching staff do to replace that? They brought in starter quality players. You can talk about Aaron Philo if you want to. I know that the jury's still out on him, as it should be. Like I said, like I had my scouting report came out for him today. And even then, like I mentioned in it, we don't know what he is. He's got 102 pass attempts in his career. We have no idea what he is. Do you think 102 pass attempts into his career, we knew what DJ Lagway was? Because that thing fell off a cliff after. So no, we don't know what Aaron Philo is. So if you think he's starter quality, then you could say he's starter quality. If you don't think he's starter quality, then you could say he's not. Right? Plain and simple. Wide receiver Eric Singleton, who joined the team last week with much fanfare, deserved so, by the way, just an absolute hooper when he was at Georgia Tech under Buster Faulkner. And I mean, again, that was just, it's great to get him here after going to Auburn, and they tried to sabotage him. Which again, like with Eric Singleton, we've talked about it. He was an outside receiver that was such a vertical threat with Georgia Tech. And then Auburn took him and put him in the slot. And then after putting him in the slot, kept him underneath. And it's like, look, he can work underneath. He can work in the slot. But the fact that you took him there and told him, hey, you're not going to do the thing that you did, and you're going to do this now. Again, coaching malpractice. There's a reason that Hugh Freeze doesn't have a job right now. A very good reason, right? Eric Singleton, unquestioned starting talent player. DJ Coleman, I was having this conversation with someone yesterday, and DJ Coleman, coming from Baylor, who his scouting report came out yesterday. But DJ Coleman is someone that I would have taken over just about any safety that ended up hitting the portal, other than from Minnesota Coy. I would have taken him over almost anybody. Like, yeah, I don't care. I think the film's that good for DJ Coleman, so I think he added an immediate player. There's a reason that he was a priority target, right? There's a very good reason for that, because he's a damn good football player. Play the nickel, could play safety, contribute at both, play well at both. I think he's got a ton of traits that just translate to the SEC and will translate to the NFL whenever he goes. Not saying he's going to be, Jim Thorpe Award winner, first round pick, but quality football player for a long time. Hell yeah. Cam Dooley, the other safety that Florida brought in from Kentucky this time, he's coming over with Chris Collins, who, of course, is now your safeties coach. He was a secondary coach at Kentucky. And Cam Dooley's coming over to play safety, nickel. I would imagine he rotates at both. Just because I think that you brought in, DJ Coleman, Cam Dooley, you have Bryce Thornton back. Like, you have 3 guys who could play both of your safety spots and the nickel. I would be stunned if you didn't play them at all those spots, right? Like, I'd be stunned if you went, hey, we're just going to put you in a box here, right? You just sit there and you just wait and we're just going to hang out. I'd be stunned by that. Harrison Moore coming in from Georgia Tech, has center experience, has guard experience. We'll see what he plays, but he's a starter. There's, I think, no doubt about that. It's just a matter of, which spot does he start at? Does he start at center because he knows the offense, he can command the offense and command the offensive line? Or does he start at guard because, frankly, I think that's where he was better in 2025, which also is very important to note. I know people keep going, oh, yeah, he was their starting center. Like, he was their starting center sometimes. Like, he wasn't their full-time starting center all year round. He was their starting center sometimes in 2025. He was also starting at guard. He played 682 offensive snaps in 2025. He played 1 as an inline tight end, obviously unbalanced formation, so he was out there. He played 427 at center and 254 at guard. Like, yeah, he played way more at center, but he played a lot of snaps all over. He played 142 of his snaps in 2024 were at guard. In his career, he's got 430 snaps at center, 396 at guard. Okay. I think he's someone where you could just say, hey, you're a starter quality at both spots, right? Let's figure out which one we're going to put you at. Let's figure out where you fit best for us. Emmanuel Ibadejo from Jacksonville State, the defensive lineman that is likely going to play a lot of snaps on the interior. I think, like, even if you don't want to say he's the starter, which is fair, right? Like, I don't like crowning someone as, oh yeah, he's a starter right away. But he is someone that, even if he's not the starter, should play a lot of snaps. Like if he's not the starter, he's going to be DT2 at that spot, whichever spot it is. Productive in 2025, very productive in 2025. Like, he's a starter quality player. TJ Shanahan from Penn State, I view as your starting guard. Plain and simple. Like, I don't think you need to even have a conversation about that. I think he's earned it. And by that I mean like just being with Penn State last year, Phil Trotwine knows him. Phil Trotwine trusts him. He could play both guard spots. And his film looks genuinely pretty good. So I think that he's a starter. Like, as I was watching it, I was like, okay, this kid's starting for Florida in 2026. You also brought in Patrick Durkin and Alec Clark. So you brought in the Tulane specialists that Tulane had one of the best special teams units in the country last year. You brought in, and I know people are going to say, like, who cares? It's specialists. People who know football care about specialists. Who would have thought? Just crazy. Just want to throw that one out there. And so Florida, like one of the approaches is, hey, we lost a lot of guys that played a lot of snaps. We need to replace those snaps. No matter what happens, even if we don't grab a single player in the portal, we need to replace those snaps. Let's replace them with quality players. And also, another way that we can try to replace those snaps and feel better about ourselves in the way that we're doing this is we could try to replace them with players that we know and players that we're familiar with. And that's another thing that the Florida Gators coaching staff did in this transfer portal window. We'll talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. The college football playoffs are wrapping up. We have one more game, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs, because right now, every college football playoff game day, which is one more, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. Now you got one more. It's Indiana and Miami, and we're all hoping for Indiana to win that game. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boost every game day, especially this Monday. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And like I said, one of the ways that the Florida Gators tried to, we'll say, how can we say it? We'll say eliminate volatility, right? As nerdy as that possibly sounds, we'll try to say the way that they tried to eliminate volatility, right, was that this coaching staff comes with, quite a few guys coming from Tulane, and the only Tulane players that Jon Sumrall and his coaching staff brought were Patrick Durkin and Alec, who we mentioned in the last segment, the kicker and the punter, right? And they were great kicker punter. Didn't bring a single offensive or defensive player to this point. Who knows with, maybe at the end of the window, you go, all right, well, we need someone we know, come on in. Right. And so maybe they do that, but you look at the offensive side of the ball, especially, which also important to know, like the Florida Gator defense in 2025 was really good. Right. And the players that are here are still really talented. So you didn't need to go out and replace a bunch of guys on defense. You're going to replace a bunch of snaps, but you didn't need to go out and replace a bunch of players, right? And look, like you lost Caleb Banks, but you didn't really have him in 2025. You lost Tyreek Sapp. He didn't really play well in 2025. You lost Jordan Castell. We know he didn't play well in 2025. You lost Sharif Denson. Great outside linebacker edge. But coverage-wise was just not his game in 2025. It was rough. But the guys that you have are still immensely talented. They were just poorly coached. And we know that, right? Like Florida had a running backs coach coaching safeties last year. Come on now. But offensively, your offense stunk last year. And Jon Sumrall and this coaching staff went, okay, we're going to go get guys that we trust and that we know. Buster Faulkner got hired as the offensive coordinator. And what did he do? He said, okay, not in order, but he goes, all right, I'm going to bring my QB, right? I'm going to bring Aaron Philo, who is going to compete for starting quarterback. I know there's going to be someone already typing, he's going to be the starter because Buster Faulkner brought him and they know him. I don't care. I really don't. I again, believe that there is going to be an open quarterback competition between Tramel Jones and Aaron Philo. And I'm going to keep believing that. So that's what I'm going to believe. But Buster Faulkner brought Aaron Philo, someone that he's had years with, knows the offense, knows the system, has worked with him. He's been a big part of the development of Aaron Philo, whatever that development has been, because we know that he's still a relative unknown. But someone that Buster Faulkner knows, trusts, and I mean, I forgot who it was that reported it, but that wherever Buster Faulkner went, he was going to try to bring Aaron Philo. Okay, works out. Harrison Moore, who we spoke about extensively last segment, starting center, starting guard for Buster Faulkner's offense last year for Georgia Tech. He knows the offense inside and out. He's been productive in that offense. So you go and you've got your guy, right? Like you've got a starting offensive lineman that you know, that you're familiar with, that you know can execute your offense. Good. You've got a starting offensive lineman there. Then you also went to Georgia Tech and you brought Bailey Stockton. And Bailey Stockton is someone who you can go back to Georgia Tech and you can go back to Aaron Philo and you can go back to, Bogart, Georgia High School. Because Aaron Philo had one very productive receiver at Georgia Tech, or in Bogart, but you can go back to Prince Avenue Christian High School, and you could see Aaron Philo was a very productive receiver, Bailey Stockton, who's also been at Georgia Tech and been in that offense for a few years and knows that offense. And you look at Bailey Stockton's most productive games, and they're games where Aaron Philo plays a lot. You've got that comfort. It's not just comfort between the coaching staff and the players. It's comfort between the players. You also look at the tight end from Georgia Tech, Luke Harpering, right? That's another player that Aaron Philo has comfort with. Again, this is like earlier in the cycle, and we'll talk about this probably tomorrow. I think we're going to talk about the quarterbacks, unless things change, right? Maybe we talk about Thursday's visitors and Friday we talk quarterbacks or something. But Luke Harpering with Aaron Philo also, they've been there. They got that comfort. We used to talk about how Tramel Jones knows the receivers that are here, right? And that should be his advantage. But now Georgia Tech brought brought two receivers, a quarterback and a center, or an offensive lineman. And there's that familiarity there too. But again, there's familiarity here between the head coach or the coaches and the players, and then the players and the players. Right? You talk about the Penn State guys. Egan Boyer, TJ Shanahan, they're both coming with Phil Trotwine, your offensive line coach. Like, again, this is comfort. And I mean, Egan Boyer has 2 games of film combined through his college career so far. He started the bowl game against Clemson, which frankly wasn't a great performance, and was with a lot of Clemson backups. So not awesome, right? Not an awesome indicator. But we've got, again, a combined 2 games of film on him. It's that bowl game, and then if you combine all the other snaps he played. Okay? Phil Trotwine's got 2 years with him. We can trust that opinion more. TJ Shanahan went from Texas A&M to Penn State, played under Phil Trotwine, and Phil Trotwine brought him with him to Florida. I think that there is value in a coach bringing just a couple of players with him, right? Like, I think you look at Matt Campbell going from Iowa State to Penn State. Penn State is basically Iowa State, right? And like, Georgia Tech fans can make fun of Florida for saying that we're trying to be Georgia Tech. Like I mentioned, I got a text from one of the Georgia Tech hosts, and he's like, "Oh, you guys gonna add yellow to your uniforms? Ha ha ha." Penn State took, I think, 1,000 kids from Iowa State when Matt Campbell went there. He probably took some students that don't even play sports just because he could. I think that not good. But I think that you talk about taking a handful of guys or a couple of guys, that feels more like you're kind of saying, like, I trust these guys right now. I'm not taking everybody. I'm taking these couple of guys because I trust them and I think that I can work with them and I think I can develop them. And to me, that matters, right? Tulane, you've got Coach Galante, who is the special teams coordinator at Tulane. You brought the Tulane specialists, and that's it. You also have familiarity from a level of some of these players played against coaches on this staff, right? Tight end Trent Thomas, who's coming in for a visit tomorrow from South Alabama, he played Tulane last year. East Carolina running back London Montgomery, he played Tulane last year. Wake Forest wide receiver Micah Mays, he played against Georgia Tech last year. So he played against Buster Faulkner last year. Obviously, Buster Faulkner is the offensive coordinator. Still saw him in person, got to see him play. Like, there, and you can go back to 2024. This happened. Like, there's multiple guys in this 2026 recruiting class or 2026 portal class for Florida where they played against some of these coaches. And look, that could mean nothing. It could. Like, that could be absolutely useless. Like, there could be absolutely no weight in that. But there could also be weight in it, right? And I mean, even just familiarity schematically, right? Like, Florida has been kind of going, hey, if we want a defensive lineman, we're going to go give Baylor a call. Part of that is the familiarity with the fronts that Coach Gerald Chapman has coached. And he's like, all right, well, Baylor runs some of those similar fronts. Let's go get guys that know that. It's about working smarter, not harder sometimes, right? And that's what Florida's doing there. And then Florida also went and got some experienced, quality, depth rotational players, whatever you want to call them. We'll talk about those when we get back with Locked On Gators. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's show, we're going to talk about the experience depth that Florida brought in. And this has been something we've been talking about this whole transfer portal window. Frankly, because I think it's important and I think it's a really smart thing to do. I really do. I think it's a really smart approach for Jon Sumrall to take, where, again, like talking about the transfer portal approach here, talking about coming over in your first year. Like, maybe this isn't going to be his approach every year, right? But your first year, you have more roster turnover. And so you need to heal. You need to deal with that. You need to handle that. And for Florida, you had Jon Sumrall bring in a bunch of guys that I don't think will start in 2026. I don't think you want to start them in 2026. They could be pure depth and never touch the field. They can be rotational players. They could be depth that sometimes touches the field. Like, they can play different roles here, but I don't think that you want them starting here. And you have all that, but you also know that if they're not in the starting lineup, if they're not in the starting rotation, if they ever do need to play significant minutes, significant snaps, sorry, used to basketball, so said minutes. If they ever do need to play significant snaps, you kind of know what you're getting from them, right? And it might not be awesome. It might be, hey, you're good in this area, you're not great in this area, and we know that, though. Like, I've been open for years about this. Like, I don't like relying on true freshmen. I don't. It's the same reason that, frankly, I don't gamble on college football or college sports often, because compared to pro athletes, college sports and college athletes are very volatile, right? Any given day, these guys can be having incredible days or just god-awful days. More so than pros do. They're way more volatile. And so I don't like to rely on them. True freshmen, especially volatile. Like, these are kids that are literal kids. Some of them are under the age of 18, stepping onto a football field against some guys who are 22, and with how some of these eligibility rules work, we got guys that are playing, year 7, year 8, which is ridiculous. I get it. Medical red shirts are a thing, eligibility, all that stuff. But at a certain point, we got to just go, hey, man, like, if you're still here in year 7 or year 8, this is probably it. At this point, you're just playing a play, right? It's not like you're pursuing an NFL career usually at that point. But so at some point, you've got, an 18-year-old stepping onto the field against a 25-year-old. Who's going to have the advantage more often than not in that? Probably the guy that's been there, done that. But Florida, they went out into the portal and they said, hey, rather than have to rely on our true freshmen, we're going to go out there and we're going to get guys where we know what they are. It might not be great, right? And the trade-off there is that if you have a true freshman that is great, you might miss that opportunity, right? If that true freshman doesn't get the opportunity because you have a veteran playing, you don't find out if he's great until next year, if he's still on your team with how college football works now. But now they went into the portal and they got guys like UCLA's Kanye Clark, Wake Forest's Micah Mays, Baylor's DK Kalu, Georgia Tech's Bailey Stockton. And just for the sake of this, we're not going to include running backs Evan Pryor and London Montgomery just for this section because they count as the qualified depth, right? But all the other guys that I listed here are guys that, if I'm not mistaken, still have, because again, eligibility is weird, but guys that still have at least 2 years of eligibility remaining. And so you can kind of look at them and say, hey, all right, in 2026, you're going to be quality depth, quality rotational piece, or frankly, again, like I said, like some of you in an ideal world, we don't really see you in 2026, right? You've got experience and depth, but not necessarily because you're great. Stanford offensive lineman, Emeka Ugorji, right? He's someone who, we've been told, hey, he's going to compete for the starting tackle spot, and that could very well be true. But he was starting as a true freshman, not because he was the best, but because he was in an awful situation. And so I'm just saying, like just because you played previously does not mean that you should still be starting here, or that the expectation should be that you're starting here. You just have that experience that is valued. And you have that experience that this coaching staff wants, because again, if there is an injury or if there are injuries that pile up, then you get to say, all right, we're going to put you in. You're going to play a lot, but we already know what we have in you. Like we know that you could be reliable there. We know I don't know. We know you've got sure hands. We know that you're good in zone coverage. Like we know what we have. We know that you're really good at running duo, not so great at running counter, right? Like we know what we have. We know how to make you work, and we know how to benefit from that. And that's a big advantage for a team that, again, could have injuries pile up, because everybody could have injuries pile up. And so this coaching staff went, yeah, we're going to go with guys that we're familiar with. We're going to go with guys that are experienced. And we're going to go with guys that are starter quality. This is a different approach for the Florida Gators in the transfer portal than we've ever seen. Not just for those reasons, but again, like this is filling out the roster in a different way than we've seen before. Billy Napier wanted to use a bunch of high school and then fill in the portal where he needed to. Jon Sumrall is using the portal because he wants to use the portal. He wants to say, hey, not everybody coming in has to be a starter. You still have value in different ways, though. And not everybody coming in this year is going to be here next year. I'll tell you, I promise you, even like the guys with multiple years of eligibility that came in from the transfer portal, there's going to be some that aren't going to be here next year. And that's okay. And I'm not saying because they're going to the league. Like they're going to portal out. Some will. Because they will find out that they do not have a role here. I don't know who. I'm not saying that with someone in mind. I'm just saying that's how college football works, right? And next year, you'll reload with probably some of the similar guys. But I do think that this year that might have been even more of an added emphasis, just because of the level of roster turnover you had, to give yourself some stability, raise your floor a little bit. I think it's an awesome approach. And I'm someone that used to be like, yeah, you do most of your work through high school recruiting. And then, or what I used to say was treat high school like the draft and the transfer portal like free agency. And Jon Sumrall is doing that to a T, where he's just like, yeah, I need a running back 3. I'm going to go get him in free agency. I'm not going to draft my running back 3. I need, tight end 3. I'm going to go sign a guy with experience that I know I can trust and rely on to be that. Because if he ever does play, I don't want it to be someone that I don't trust. Because if he ever does play, we're not in a great spot right now, right? Like you're not supposed to be a guy that we think is good. So I'd rather bring in someone that I know works for me and know can work for me, and call that a day, and just live with comfort, right? It's a hell of an approach. Personally, I think so. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day, every day. We are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. We will be back again. I think we're going to do another midday stream today at noon-ish. If you have your, your notifications on, you'll get one half an hour before if we do schedule it. If you don't get one, we don't schedule it. Plain and simple. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI and swampsignal.substack.com if you want Florida Gators written work. Like I said, we've got scouting reports coming out for all these portal kids. I'm going to try to get, I've been doing one per day. I'm going to try to get some days with more than that if possible. But frankly, film takes a while to grind. Long videos. They're long files there. But I will see you all next time.